and a 1 and a 2. And here we go. Hello, welcome everybody to Astrology Unplugged. My name is Rick DiClemente. We talk about astrology here all the time on Thursday nights. Nice to have you. And if some of you can't make it, tell your friends you can always watch these replays on YouTube under my name, or just search YouTube for Astrology Unplugged. Now, tonight we're going to talk about different things. The main part of the evening will be to talk about what's going on, yes, with the demonstrations and the fevered energy behind all that, Eris and all that stuff. But a couple of things I want to mention first before we get to Harriet Tubman's chart. Wow, Liza and I just watched a documentary on her life. Man, was she incredible. And yes, she should be on the $20 bill. And not you know who. I wanted to thank people who have made donations and repeat that it's really a nice thing and I appreciate it because we do all this free. There is a donation button on my website, starself.com, or you can go to starself.com/donate. Not donut, donate. And you can put in a penny or a nickel, whatever you want. And it's appreciated. Now, I wanted to mention that I had put out it's very important that if you want to follow me these days, the best way to follow me is through Facebook. I don't do a lot with the mailing list anymore. I used to do hundreds of newsletters, and it's very time consuming. But to do so, I would suggest you follow me and become friends on Facebook and sign up on the mailing list on the website. Now, on the Facebook articles on June 3rd, I reprinted an article on June 3rd, and I told people how these things dumping out into the streets, these sessions and these revolutionary, what was started out with looting and untoward type things, but they're really nice gathering of people to fight for their Black rights and human rights. And I talked about how I was going to go till maybe the 17th of June. And the reason why was because as that was happening on the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, the whole time, the reason you kept seeing it sustaining in the streets and sustaining, and they kept coming and coming, was Eris and Pluto were coming into the perfect square. Okay? So that's for those of you to stuff the feather in your cap who are yet not following Eris. You need to start following Eris. And I understand why you don't, because it's a pain to follow every little body out there, but she's the one. Okay. Let's take a look at the phenomenal life of Harriet Tubman, born a poor Black slave in Maryland, beaten, working in the fields when she was 5 years of age, ended up having an accident, a rock hit her in the head. She ended up having seizures for the rest of her life. She lived till the age of 90. She didn't develop, but she had an awful lot to do with creating and strengthening the Underground Railroad in a semi-northern state. Maryland was kind of split at the time. She just went to work and she was ballsy. She saved over 300 people, over 300 slaves. She would bring them north and then sneak back down, go get a couple more, bring them back up. 300 people she saved. And this woman she couldn't read or write. She was just tough. And look at this natal chart. Now, it comes to me, and I always have to question the validity. But just looking at this, the way you check the validity of a chart is one, does it sound like them? Yeah, okay. But the big way you check them is you line up the dates of events in their life. And the events of the future planets have to line up with that natal chart. And this one did so both ways. So let's take a look. Hello, Erica. And we will take a look at her. And I don't even have her on the screen. I better look up Tubman. Tubman. Wonder how she got that name. Tubman. Okay, there she is. Now I'll repaint your screen and we will take our time. Hello, Jan. And see how remarkable this Taurus woman was. This Taurus woman that you did not mess with. Little thing, too. Sun in Taurus, 1820, born near Baltimore. I didn't have the exact town, but you don't have to worry about the exact town if you don't have a birth time. And we don't have a birth time, so we use noon. Moon in Scorpio, born during a full moon. I did not check. Very possible she was born during a lunar eclipse. You get that now. All lunar eclipses are full moons. Not all full moons are lunar eclipses. All new moons, all solar eclipses are new moons, but not the reverse. She's got Mercury in Eris, strong leader. Saturn in Eris, well, she said she's going to do something. She got it done. Chiron in Eris. This is the woman going through the bushes, doing most of her movement at night, town to town to town. Pluto right next to Chiron, even though out of signs, 3 degrees away. Pluto next to Chiron. She had phenomenal drive. Phenomenal drive. And this is at the tip of a T-square. What's the T-square? Venus in childlike friendly Gemini, opposite Uranus and Neptune. So this Venus is very active. This means that she just did very well meeting people and wanting to socialize with all kind of people, which she did, in fact. But that T-square goes up to, you got to look at the degrees, 22, 28, 0. So it goes to the late degrees of mutable signs. So that T-square is largely going right through Pluto. And in the noon chart, this Pluto's in the 8th house. So this woman is a powerhouse with this T-square to Pluto. And I do believe that when the Saturn return happened, is when she did most of her breaking free from slavery and started with the Underground Railroad. She did marry at that age, an unhappy marriage. But you have, if you say to yourself that the noon charts seem to reflect some pretty good truth, look at where her Eris ended up. Her Eris was in Aquarius. So no matter when she was born, her Eris was in Aquarius, but it falls right on that angle. Okay? And the angles do hold some truth in noon charts, even though we don't have the birth time that I have found. And this was her. She wasn't satisfied. This is not a Taurus. Tauruses don't go out and save other people. Tauruses go out and save their own family, and they're real good at it, but that's about it in general. But you got a bunch of Aquarius, your family's a whole lot bigger than just 2-3 people. It's all the black people. So she had a phenomenal impact on these folks. Extremely strong. And we I'm not sure, but we sort of have a bucket pattern to the moon, which is in Scorpio. Now, since we don't know when she's born, the moon could move 6.5 degrees either way. On a noon chart, the moon is put in the middle of the day. The moon moves 13 degrees a day. 13 degrees a day. So the moon could go backward towards 5, all the way up to about 16. So either way, the moon is in Scorpio. So you talk about stubborn, hard-headed, stubborn, powerful, and you got a T-square to Mars in Leo. You think you're going to stop me? The president's got Mars in Leo. Mars in Leo is a real good example of learning astrology. Your Mars energy is in a sign that's very conducive. I'm coming because I said I'm coming. I told you I was coming, and I'm coming. All right? It's not like Mars in Cancer, or Mars in Pisces, or Mars in Capricorn, or Mars in Libra. They're not like that. Mars in Leo, I said I'm doing it, I'm doing it. Well, you got to blend the whole thing. You see that she's very, very friendly, but she doesn't leave it at that. And when you have a lot of Scorpio in your chart, you have a lot of a sense of purpose. Now, this is what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. How do I say this? When you see really powerful people, you're going to most likely see a very powerful chart. Some people will take that same powerful chart and tip the sailboat over. Some people will sail it. But unfortunately, when you have a weak chart, when the chart doesn't show you much pizzazz, usually you're not going to see much of interest in their life. Usually. Now, I've seen charts where the chart's kind of boring and people make a real nice life out of it. So they can be done. Charts are very complex. I feel so sorry for Susan in Cleveland because she's always trying to find out what are the rules that make a chart work, and there aren't any. So you got to be real experienced at living in the vagueness, like Moon and Pisces, like I have. Then that helps you understand the chart. But if you're looking for black and white land, you better go play Othello, or you better go play Go, or you better get out of astrology because that just doesn't work. Anyhow, an incredible chart, a powerful chart. Pluto trine to the Mars. Pluto trine to Mars and Leo. This means that the trees got out of her way. I don't know how to explain it to you. You know, they say that God moves the earth and mountains for you. That magical, charismatic quality that you have, that the things just open up for you. And I didn't mention to you, she put all her faith in God, period. And she sang those songs as she was marching and walking through creeks so she couldn't be covered by the dogs, risking lynching. Really heavy duty woman. The woman should be on the $20 bill. And maybe the ones and the twos too. Anyhow, it's a marvelous chart. I encourage you to take a look at it in case you want to study up on her. Just a phenomenal quality in this chart. April 28th of 1820, I put her down at noon, and I picked a place near Dorchester, Maryland. You might find a better locale, but it's a marvelous chart. Okay, now what I want to do with you is this. I want to do a little rewinding here back to, what was the guy's name on was it Flintstones? No. The Wayback Machine. Who had the Wayback Machine? Bullwinkle. Bullwinkle. Simon, take the Wayback Machine. We're going to wind it back. I have to ask to unmute you anymore. I can't just unmute you. Who's that?
Sherman and Peabody.
Sherman Peabody. Thank you. See, I can't just unmute. I don't know why they did that. But you can unmute yourself, which is a terrible thing to tell you. We're going to get in the Wayback Machine. We're going to go back to 1965. And I remember it well. And I remember being in the middle of it, and I'm sure Marsha Bud does too, to many of you. We thought it was normal. All this phenomenal music coming from England, and everybody doing the hootenanny and all the different dances and all the revolutions going on and all the fighting with the war. We thought all this stuff was normal, but boy, it wasn't. And what it was the Uranus-Pluto age. Uranus and Pluto were approaching each other from 1960, and they gathered together in 65 in the happening. You're right, Erica. It was a happening, the happenings, and all the songs of Diana Ross. And then through 65 was the peak period, but it went on to about 71 or 72. So from about 60 to 72, which coincides with the greatest music we ever had. Not a coaky dink. All right, so let's take a look. People that are sending me messages, be very aware of what's going on in the chat box, but I won't be using it much without Greg here. I will be busy doing these other things. So if we go back into the Wayback Machine and we take a little walk with Sandra wherever she's going, we put up the transits. All right. And we're going to put this on animate, and we're going to go back to October 8th, 1965. All right. Let me repaint your screen. I believe that's the date. Okay. Look at this. I believe it's October 8th. I don't know what hour is. But on October 8th of 65, Uranus finally caught up with Pluto. Okay, at 18 degrees. In astrology, you always round up. This is the 18th degree of Virgo, even though it's 1708, 1706, whatever it is. But sometime during that day, those two planets lined up. Hey, I got bad news for everybody. I did a chart on coming the moment Pluto is going to enter Aquarius in 2023. In that moment, which is true for the whole planet, at that moment, there's 6 planets in Aries. And that marks the time, the whole time that Pluto's going to be in Aquarius, that's the chart of it. So you got all that explosive Pluto and Aquarius energy coming with 6 planets in Aries. And that is a real clear indication of big time war. So let's hope it's not that and turns into something else. So what happened in the 60s? Here they conjunct around the 18th degree. So from 60 on, you've got the Beatles, you got the Kennedy assassination, you got LBJ, you got the civil rights movement, the women's movements, all the different major laws that were changed. And you had the loosening up. Everybody started wearing bell bottoms. Everybody started wearing longer hair. The Beatles came in 64, all that stuff, the 60s. And the FBI and the police were following everybody because they're scared to death. They were going to start shooting marijuanas up their elbow. You know, they were just scared to death. And they were holding on. And I remember it got to about 69. And 69, it was just, forget it. They weren't going to track anybody more. The cat was out of the bag. And to me, I react emotionally. I react intuitively. To me, the turning point, this is my opinion, to me, the turning point of the 60s was on the downbeat in the White Room by Cream, when they hit that downstroke. And I'll bet you that the day they recorded that song, if you did a chart of that moment, it was just symbolic. Because after that Cream hit there, when Clapton hit that chord, it was just like all hell broke loose. But that's how you have to work as an astrologer. You have to work intuitively to sense these things. Now, anyhow, so you have the whole thing. And what are Uranus and Pluto doing? First of all, you got the wildest, craziest planet in Uranus. And you got the most bombastic, strong, potential, powerful planet of Pluto. You got them coming together. Now, as 2 planets start to approach, you have to become very aware of this term, the faster moving planet. The faster moving planet does not mean it's moving faster. It has nothing to do, that's why we call it faster, because it has nothing to do with it. It's going through the zodiac quicker. Now, since Pluto's way farther out than Uranus, their real speeds are real different, but one is going through the zodiac faster than the other one is. So the faster moving planet is Uranus, because Uranus goes around the circle in 84 years. Pluto, 256. So when you compare Pluto and Eris, 540 years, Pluto's the faster moving planet. And what I just finished reading, and he really emphasized greatly by Arroyo, and I'm going to start giving a lot of thought to this, is the powerful planets are the ones that are moving the slowest. Now, that's why you get your ephemeris back out. Because when you open up a computer chart, you have no idea how fast the planet's moving, unless you do a lot of work. In the ephemeris, you can see it moving. And right now, Neptune is slowing down. It's going to stop in 4 days. Mercury has just stopped last night. So in effect, Neptune at 20 degrees right now in, is it in Pisces? Where in the heck is Neptune? Eris, Taurus. I don't even know where it is. In Pisces, it's 20 Pisces. It's coming to a stop. So that means by definition that it's going really slowly. So if you've got something around 20 Pisces, 20 Virgo, 20 mutable, you're having a real Neptunian time. Okay? So as these two were starting to collide, the peculiar thing was, here you had the two most radical planets there are in the most tame, controlled sign of Virgo. You had a Virgo president with OBJ, but you have, and I've seen thousands of these clients in the past 10 years who all were born with Uranus and Pluto together because they were born in the 60s. But they're all controlled and they're all disciplined and they're all professionals. They're all going to work. So it's this whole sub-generation of people born in the 60s who were really well contained and behaving themselves, but they asked themselves in the past 5 or 10 years, they asked themselves, why? Why did I behave so much? Why? And you know, the old Virgos and their shoulds. So you found in the last 5 to 7 years, a lot of Virgos took the lid off. I don't know why in the hell I was behaving, but I'm not going to do it anymore. So they really can be their own worst enemy in terms of letting their hair down. So those two planets went back and forth. Very interesting that in 1965, on October the 8th, when they conjuncted, 10 days later, the Course in Miracles was given to us. October 18th is when Helen Schucman was told to make notation. This is a Course in Miracles. That's one of the main reasons that I've given it my check mark. And I've validated it and said, if saying it's hooey, that to me is when you have major planetary stresses, major things happen. Now, just like now, with this thing going on now with Uranus and Pluto, Eris and Pluto, and now we're on the verge of announcing this new device called Healy, Healy. And the next time I'm going to bring on Linda Veros, who has been our most popular guest so far. She has signed me up for the Healy device. It's a healing electronic device that works on the quantum level. Jan and I are involved. We haven't even gotten our machines yet. They're about the size of a pack of cigarettes. You plug wires into them. You can put nodes on your temples or on your thighs or wherever, and it has like 800,000 frequencies. And each frequency heals something specifically. So it's selling like crazy. We're going to get some experience ourselves with it, and then I will be glad to bring, and she'll be glad to come back on, Linda Veros, to talk with you about this marvelous device. The reason I'm saying that to you is we are in the quantum age. Now, so back at Uranus and Pluto in 1965, if you look through Linda Hill and you look through the other meanings of those degrees, the real meaning of the 18th, this is fascinating, the real meaning of the degree where they conjuncted at 18 Virgo, the meaning of that degree, the Sabian symbols, was we needed to start learning by following intuition instead of thinking. Following intuition. And you saw that in the 60s. You saw people trying to say in their own beatnik type of word to get out of the head and just do what you feel like doing. It's okay, do your thing, do what you want to do, that kind of stuff. But that's what's meant by it. So what happened in the 60s was major seeds were planted. what happens with any conjunction. The end of a cycle, beginning of a new one. So who really picked up on this was LBJ and all the fascinating things he did for the blacks, he did for the poor, and that's a very Virgoan thing to do. Virgo rules the sixth house. The sixth house is the house of the underdog, the underprivileged, and a lot of things he did, and Kennedy did also, were beginnings of things, of civil rights, etc. The Civil Rights Act, I think it was January of '64. But what happened was this. We all fell asleep. We all took it for granted, except the astrologers were watching. And here's what happened. Here you got the 1965. This is the birth chart. I'd have to work with the minutes to get this precise, but around this time. So you set this on years, and you go speeding forth through the years and watch the planets fly by. We're in 1990, 2000, 2010, okay. 2019, let's go back to about 2012. I can't remember the exact date. Here's Pluto, here's Uranus. And see now what's happened? All those years later, they started out over here at the 18th degree of Virgo. Uranus is faster moving. So from 65 to 011, Uranus went all the way to here, while Pluto only went to here. But what happened was they got into the opening square. See, I'm not going to get them exact right now. But around 2012, they squared each other 7 times. This is what caused all the crazy shit from 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16. This is why things started going crazy, beside the fact that Pluto was in Capricorn. Now, I told you this story long ago, but I'm sure many of you forget it. So what happened is the opening square, the seed that was planted in 1965, came into its first test at its opening square. That's what the opening square does. It tests you. Whatever planet it is, they'll have different cycles. So we saw in 2012, 2013, we started seeing this, doing away with civil rights, fighting really heavily about abortion rules. All the things that were developed and we had established, all of a sudden we're up for grabs again, and we were revisiting everything. And that's why so many of these very profound authors started to notice that the 60s were being repeated. They weren't being repeated, they were being tested. And the test will happen again in about 50 years when Uranus is over here and Pluto's over here, and they're opposite each other. That's the second phase, just like the phases of the moon. Okay, so that's what happened 2012 to about 2017. And on the internet, you can see all kind of really wonderful discussions by the man himself, Richard Harness, talking about these ages of Uranus-Pluto. So what happened in the last several years is we had 7 chances of Uranus squaring Pluto. They kept going back and forth. We had 7 chances to get this right. And what happened? We got a whole lot of F's on our report cards. In terms of rights, for human rights for people. And then the Fox network was clever enough to turn that into a real nasty phrase that has a real bad connotation called political correctness, which is a real non-nasty word now. But all real political correctness really is let's just live with each other kindly. Let's just do things so it works for all of us, you know? So that is what has provided the basis of all this stuff that's going on with the Black Lives Matters. It would have been totally different if in the last 7 years or so, we had started to realize that we had succeeded through these time periods. And what have we learned? We learned, number one, people have not been learning by using their intuition. That's what the whole seed was about. And because learning by your intuition means that you're listening to God's quiet voice. That's what it means. Everybody talks about listening to the quiet inner voice. What ain't Elvis Presley? Is and it ain't the doctor down in Texas. I don't think. So what is the worst possible time to walk around America and distribute all these report cards that had D minuses and Fs on it, but at the same time that Pluto was going through Capricorn and we're watching all these pillars, institutions fall down. That's exactly what's been happening. Exactly what's been happening. So I'm going to get into these other charts in a minute. So you see these god-awful murders by the police, some of them understood, some of them not understood, these terrible debates and people screaming, and all this division that's happening with the races. Horrible stuff happening. Now, the reason that this thing started to sustain so much in the past couple of weeks is because of Eris. What does Eris about? Eris is about, I'm going to stop unfairness. I'm going to stop unjustness. And I don't care what I got to do it. Underline. I am the goddess of disruption and chaos. And that's why we're in this mess. Now, if you start to think really clearly, you'll start to see vividly what's happening. How many thousands of people are walking around saying, what is with these Trump people? No matter what he does, he keeps them. What is it? What is it? Well, that's what Eris does when she's misunderstood. Eris is about ultimately truth. I mean, all the planets are ultimately altruistic. They just do it different ways. But Eris is about, I don't care what I got to do to attain it, well, I'm going to do it. But since Trump has delivered this in a really subtle, underhanded way, hey, us guys, we've been digging coal and they haven't been treating us right, have they? We ain't been digging any coal. I'm trying to tell my West Virginia friends, where's your new coal mines? I don't see them. So what you have clearly is the dark side of Eris and the light side. And what you've been seeing marching in the street has been the light side. We're coming together, and what Eris is about is enough is enough is enough, and I'm pissed. That's what she's about. And that's what she did in mythology. She went into this party of all these gods, and she totally disrupted the whole damn party because they were in there talking about who was more beautiful rather than them, and they were more beautiful than them. And she just can't stand that stuff. She can't have it. She just blew the whole thing up. So that's what's going on. And you saw all the beautiful stuff arising, and the Fox Network couldn't stand it this week. They couldn't show all the people with all the productive, calm, behaved discussions they ran. They kept flashing back to all the riots and all the looting. So you see the negative side is they're convinced that they're fighting to become more heard and to become more just, and that they want to be counted. Those are very Arisian things, but they're not counting it right. They're not looking at it right. And to them, their anything goes has gone way over the edge into whatever he does, whatever. Hey, I don't care. He could get on top of a statue and start shooting people. He could. I believe it. But then you got this little factor in the middle of all of it called the human ego. And the human ego, they don't like being wrong. They don't like being wrong. You got a big pill to swallow for these brave souls who've said, I've come forth, I was disillusioned, I was screwed by this guy, I got the balls to come forth and say, I'm not following anymore. And that's happening, okay? I know you're sending me texts and I cannot read them. I am sorry. Now, so that's what's going on. And now what's really pissing me off are these folks that want to find reasons. They want to say everything that's going on in the streets is just riots and it's just looting. And it's not. You see the whole damn country and other countries, because Eris is squaring Pluto for everybody. And I just want to say, can't you let these folks have their day? Can't you just let these folks have their couple weeks? Look at the shit they've been through. Go in their shoes for a while. Go in a cotton field, 120 degrees, while you're getting whipped and you have no water, and you have no shoes, and you have no bathroom, and you have no break, and you have no money until you break. Let them have their time. And an awful lot of what I'm hearing and seeing is a whole lot of white guilt. Now, I don't think we need to slap each other around, but we definitely need to just keep doing what you're seeing happening. Imagine if the virus weren't out there, how big these parades would have been. Humongous. So that's what's happening. People are feeling the archetypal level. They're feeling it from the collective. That's what makes things move. Now, as we speak, Uranus and Pluto will get further and further apart. Pluto and Eris are going to hit each other 3 more times. They've hit twice. They're going to hit 3 more times, 1 more time this year, 2 more times next year. And they're so close it doesn't even matter. When they're this close, it doesn't matter. It's going on now. So I thought it would be intriguing to look at 3 charts. 1, the chart of the Emancipation Proclamation, which was at midnight on my birthday, January the 1st. Mine's the easy one. They say, when you're born, I go, and that's it. Midnight, 1863, right in the middle of the Civil War. Boy, this president went through the stuff. This is the exact chart of the Emancipation Proclamation in D.C. Exact. Now, you have to ask yourself, what am I looking for? I'm looking for planets now compared to what this chart promised, because this chart is the beginning. It's the birth of freedom for the blacks. First thing you see, Saturn in Libra rising. This is a major symbol of fairness. Saturn's opposite Neptune, which is kind of confusing the issue. Mars is opposite Jupiter, which is an energetic, like people coming out and celebrating. And that T-square goes down to the Mercury, Venus in Capricorn. So these things are very difficult to translate. The Uranus is up in Gemini. This is a symbol of let the people know, broadcast it. But what's going on right now? Pluto is right here, right now. Neptune is sitting right here. It's kind of quiet. Uranus is sitting 9 of Taurus. So Uranus is about right on Pluto. Uranus is 923, Pluto's 930. So in this chart, Uranus is exploding the natal Pluto. Okay, so what does the Pluto mean? These are very hard charts to interpret. I didn't see this till this second. The Pluto in Taurus in the 8th house in this chart, what does it mean? I'll tell you exactly what it means. We have, the whole country, a very meaningful, deadly, powerful, meaningful covenant that we have signed, and we have promised each other that we would not betray this. That's what this is. This is a covenant. Now, when Uranus is hitting it, like it's doing today, it's within a day or so. When it's hitting that Pluto, what do you think Uranus does to Pluto? Well, on the very best of days, Uranus shatters it into millions of pieces, only to watch the ashes fall and to examine the pieces and say, well, was this really true now? Is this what we have? Because when Uranus hits anything, one question is, are you able to be yourself? Is a Black woman able to walk through a drugstore without being followed? Is a Black man able to do the same? I heard one yesterday, broke my heart. I can't remember what it was exactly. I'll just paraphrase it for you. A Black man was going to do some work on some lady's plumbing in her backyard. I forget what town it was. He called the police. I'm going to be in that yard, and I'm Black, and I'm going to work on her plumbing, and I want you to know. And the people on the other end of the phone said, we're so sorry that you have to do this. We certainly understand. Now that is just pathetic. Now, Uranus is on the Pluto now. Now I'll tell you what that means. Remember, this all started with Uranus, Pluto. What this means is, what are they saying? God damn it, right now we're going to turn things around in a real way to make this promise work. No more BS talking. That's what it means. And I don't want to see this crowd if they have to turn to the OR. If they don't get what they want. I don't, because they're being really well behaved. They're being marvelously behaved and very civil. And they don't get what they want. And this insists upon radical change across the board. That's the direct translation of Uranus Pluto. Radical change across the board. Then you may as well take that proclamation and what it's written on, and you know what you can do with it. That's why you're going to find these charts happening, because these events, whether they're the emancipation or the person's indoctrination, whatever it is, these charts live. They're not just human charts. They're all entities. And so that Emancipation Proclamation that's been under us for so long is exploding now, and it's being tested, and there ain't no more talking about it. People are in the street, and they're in a Uranian mood. They're not breaking everything. They're being friendly. But it's only going to go on so long, and then you get in the middle of another guy shot. I was telling Liza facetiously, we ought to have a TV channel that's Black men being shot and people going nuts with guns in schools. A full-time cable channel. You tell me it wouldn't sell, and tell me it wouldn't be on the air all the time? Because it would be. Terrible thought. All right, I'll behave. Second chart. I just wanted to show you things like how non-human charts work. The Civil Rights Act. All right, here's the Civil Rights Act chart. The Civil Rights Act. I could not get a time. It was July the 2nd, 1964, LBJ. Let me get a drink of water and you can stare at that.
We can't see your screen, Rick.
You can't.
No, we can't see the chart.
Well, I'm looking at the monitor and the monitor looks fine. Let's try it again. How about now?
I'm seeing it.
You having
Can
trouble?
somebody else see it?
Yes, I see it.
I just see a dark screen that say that you have started screen sharing. It says double click to enter full screen mode.
Go ahead and hit it. Nancy, do you see it?
I see it.
Yep.
Sandra sees it. Marcia? Marcia, you see it? Do you
I
see
see
it?
it too.
You see a chart, Marcia? Make your head go up and down because I can't hear you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I was cleaning cat throw up.
That's all right. I've been there. This something with your machine, Erica. Okay, now this chart is a noon chart because we don't have the birth time. Look at the top of the chart. This is the Civil Rights Act. So this has to be seen similar but yet different. The moon in Eris at the top of the chart in Aries. The moon in Eris, that's about, we're going to get this done. We're going to do it. Okay? What's rising? Of course, the sun. You got the Pluto, Uranus. See, this is only 1 year before Uranus-Pluto conjunction. This is 1 year before these two planets conjuncted in October of 65. So the 60s energy was very powerful. And it was opposing Saturn, and all of the T-square went to Mars and Gemini. Isn't that curious? Mars and Venus and Gemini. And this indicates that somehow in the Civil Rights Act, Mars and Gemini indicates that the act has many parts to it. It's very flexible, that it would spread out. It's like a jack of all trades type of energy. So I don't know exactly how you would translate that, but let's go back to that chart and see what's happening to it now. All right, the main thing that's happening now with everybody is at the 25th degree of Aries, right here, and the 25th degree of Capricorn. This is Pluto, Saturn. This is Eris. So there's not much going on at those degrees. Okay, Neptune and Scorpio, Jupiter here, Mars, Saturn, 17. Okay. So we don't see it without doing other harmonics and other such charts. We're not seeing a lot happening in that one. And then I said to myself, well, you're an astrologer. You got your own show. You might as well do what you want to do. And what I did was Abraham Lincoln's chart.
Ooh.
And look at what we found. Now, you might ask Mark, who's the Aries, why are we doing Abraham Lincoln's chart? The answer is because that's what we want to do. Because he's symbolic, see? When people are that big and their statues that big, they're more than just the human being that came from Kentucky. I mean, he pretty much had to sneak into town to get there, and he was dead 3 days later when the war was over. You know, I mean, he was the Civil War president. But look what's going on in his chart. It's a remarkable chart. And he's got a birth time, 6:57. He was born at sunrise. And what's going on now is Uranus is at 9. He's got Uranus opposite Uranus, and he's an Aquarian. And you see I use the present tense because Abraham Lincoln is still alive. His archetypal energy is alive, and he's going through a midlife crisis. Okay, now he's got Uranus opposite Uranus in the house of mind and philosophy, but let's look at it this way. He's got Uranus opposite Uranus. I wasn't surprised whatsoever when I saw this. Uranus opposite Uranus means, am I free when I'm with you? Am I free when I'm with you? Is the person I'm being with when I'm with you? Make it so that the person I am able to be itself. This whole dynamic goes back and forth. Okay? which is why we know it as the midlife crisis, and people go nuts with their Harleys and they get shades and they go to Las Vegas on Route 66. It's like a one-way trip for midlife crisis. They must have a road called the Midlife Crisis Way. Are we free? This is what Uranus talks about. Am I free? And what it really means is, am I free inside, like the Course talks about? Have I removed enough blockages that my heart can beat freely? In human terms, it means, am I free in this marriage that I could be myself? That's why Uranus, when you see a couple that goes through trouble, one of the best things you can see with the couple is they start to go through Uranian time and they start to become friends again. They start to repair the friendship first, and then hopefully it goes on into the repairing the love that's there. So that's hopeful pattern. So we're seeing this in Abe's chart itself. So you could literally say, he's turning over into the grave. You could literally say that. And you know, he and FDR, they were the two big Aquarians in our history. They're looking back, they're not shocked, they see it. They see the same human principles that we're fighting now, fighting then. Imagine what they saw back then. I don't know if you know this, but LBJ's formative years, and he got it to LBJ, but Lincoln, in his formative years, he got to be an elder teen in his late teens, and he took a paddle boat and went down the Mississippi by himself. He was in Illinois at the time. He went down the Mississippi and he visited some of these villages, and he saw what some of these slaves went through. And that was it. He went back home, and that just made permanent impact on him. So we have the avatar itself, the avatar, going through radical change now. So what happens to a society, beside all this other stuff going on, the coming Pluto return, beside the Pluto squaring Eris, what does the Uranus mean? It means that if we're going to survive tremendous tension when Uranus is opposite Uranus, tremendous tension, wrinkling your skin, I mean, wrapping your skin, you want to get out of your skin. People use these phrases. I'm coming out of my skin, they say. I'm beside myself, they use these words. What are we going to do with that energy? That energy is insisting, we're going to fix it now. And if we don't fix it, everything's going to shatter. It's that simple. And if you want to try to predict what's going to happen when everything shatters, well, let me know what you come up with. Because it's going to shatter. Because we have learned that if you're not free, I can't be free. And this is not the way a Cancer country operates. Face it, we've been not giving a crap. We've been playing like, if you're not free, but I'm free, it's okay. That's what we've been doing. Not anymore. And you see plenty of white people out marching with the blacks. That's wonderful. So these are some of the reasons we're seeing it. The Emancipation Proclamation. I think that's an eclipse date too. Which one were you talking about? June 21st. Oh, in a couple days. I'm going to be bragging on that one. I can't brag on that because our show's next week. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to brag right now. I'm going to start bragging right now, and I'm going to let myself brag. June 21st, 3 days from now, and I'm going to keep my voice down because I don't want her to hear me, because I'm going to be doing a mad dance in this house 3 days from now. But I smoked like a fiend for 25 years, and coming this Sunday, 20 years, not one puff. 20 years I have made it without a cigarette or a puff. None. I would have been dead by now, but I'm really proud of myself, and I'm going to get up and dance like a crazy fool. And I didn't see how I could do it for a day or a couple of days. It was just miraculous, and I thank God. Okay, so we can bring the 9 o'clock hour to a close, which is fine. The, the dance should go on YouTube too. You are awful. The dance is not going on YouTube. I have a hard enough time. I just want to play some music. Let me play some music. The people like the music. They won't let me play the damn music. But did you? Let's open up the mics now. I don't want to open up to other subjects. We're talking about what I talked about tonight. Did you see how it showed up in Lincoln's chart? It showed up in the Emancipation chart. Astrology is very broad, but I feel for you, Susan, because Susan is trying so hard to learn. You got to learn in the beginning of astrology, you got to learn what you can't do, because it just doesn't make sense. Then once you master it, then you do anything you want. That's kind of how it goes. So anybody got questions? Yes, Marcia, you have to unmute yourself, everybody. Go ahead.
The Uranus opposite Uranus, I got a little confused in there. When you talk,
with Lincoln.
so you were talking about Lincoln's time in 1863,
Right.
as opposed to now?
Okay, let me explain it to you. First of all, in his life, when he was alive, at age 42, we all have Uranus opposite Uranus.
At age 42.
Around 42.
Okay.
Yeah. And that is, this is well documented in my most popular video on YouTube, which is called Uranus Stages. Like 3,000 people have seen it. And it describes Uranus at age 21, Uranus at age 42, Uranus at age 63. It's 4 stages of 21 years each. That's how Uranus works. So the first stage is the radical stage with the family. The second stage, the opposition, is the radical stage with the other. The other. How am I with other people? Are you holding me down? Am I holding myself down? So even though Lincoln's been dead for quite a while, him as an avatar, his energy still commands the spirit behind this emancipation. It's almost like you would see playwrights bring their ghost back and have the ghost go through something, and then the ghost exits. You can still see that it's non-physical, it's quantum. And when I opened up Lincoln's chart today, if I would have found nothing, I would have been just shocked, because you can see it. You can see it in the streets. Go ahead.
And do you think this might have something to do with the 2 or 3 decisions this week with the Supreme Court?
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. Because not because of the Uranus and Lincoln's chart, although that is part of it, but because of the Pluto Eris that's coming up. We're all starting to sniff Pluto Eris, just like in the 60s. I remember in Morgantown, I walked through the streets in 1972, and one day I made myself stop, and I got away from all people, and it was 1972, and I was one of those bliss golden moods, and I said to myself, remember this moment. Remember this feeling is so special, not because you're 19. It's not because you're 19. It's not because you're going to see the Allman Brothers. This is just a special vibe. It was the Woodstock vibe. The Woodstock people weren't stupid. They want to portray us as stupid. We weren't stupid. Look at how many things have come out of that. Okay? So getting back to what you're saying, Uranus, you have to look at the fact that we have embodied Lincoln just as he has embodied us. Lincoln existed for one reason, to keep his pact, to keep the country together, period. That's what he did, and it killed him. So he can't go through something without us going through it. It's not possible. Once again, it's the quantum world. He's separate, but he's not. He's separate, but he's not. But what's so Uranian about this, and you got to keep in memory now, that at the time being, Uranus is acting in Taurus, and his Uranus was in Scorpio. So I can't remember what he did at age 42, but after I recheck it, but it's probably when he got to the White House. But your question is, you take the same principles that you would be dealing with a child who grew up to be 42 or a business that grew up to be 42. You apply the same principles here. So what you're seeing here, what you're seeing is these people on the streets are saying, we have had it. We have tried being nice. We have burned. We have begged. We've done everything. And it's going to change. Now, I think it's very unfortunate, my own opinion, that they went off with such stupid things as defunding the police, because we certainly need the police departments. So I think that really went overboard, but I'm not going to argue about it. But Susan's mumbling in her quiet. Go ahead, Susan. Go ahead. Mumble to me, Susan.
Unmute yourself.
She's
Okay, I'm trying.
yeah,
Every
she's
time
trying.
I hit the microphone, it leaped out of my way. Sorry.
Okay,
about
well,
that.
you're mumbling real loud, so get it out.
Defunding isn't defunding. It's reorganizing.
Well, then they better use the right word.
Exactly. They're using the wrong word
Yeah,
deliberately.
just like that little word that Bernie used called socialism. How it's
Right.
them.
It's the wrong word.
Oops.
It's a whole great deal of what is called police work right now is sending the police to deal with domestic issues that could be better dealt with by social workers.
You are exactly right. But what do you think they're doing with it on Fox Network with that word?
Exactly.
It was just idiotic.
Through them.
No, the point is this. Let's get back to the point. The point is, it's real, and you can feel it's real, and you're doing this to an American body that has been on the operating table since 2008, has got major slits in it and major machinery keeping it alive, and now you got this going. So the question is, we got an awful lot of people that don't have any trouble with black marriages, black and white marriages, et cetera, et cetera. We all have a lot of great friends who are black or white. Fine. But what are we going to do with the folks who ain't fine? What are we going to do with them? And they have to be assimilated. They have to be processed. And it's scary.
I say make them declared a hate group because that's what they are.
You're exactly right. Erica, go ahead, dear.
Just 3 comments. I really think they came up with defund the police because you need some kind of a meme. You need something short, and you couldn't give this like whole paragraph of an explanation because you lose people's attention. You must admit they did grab everybody's attention and got everybody nice and worried, which is a good thing. That's number 1. Number 2, in May, Trump went to the Lincoln Monument to complain about how he's being treated worse than Abraham Lincoln. Remember that? And I can't remember what the third thing was. I should have written it down. But
you saw what I put on Facebook yesterday, didn't you? You know why he's keeping Tubman off the $20 bill, don't you?
no, why?
Why you think?
Because of Jackson. Because of the...
He don't care about anybody else. He don't care about
Jackson is his idol. He wants to replace Jackson on the 20th.
Think how pretty his picture would look there.
Oh, God!
Didn't he
Exactly.
also say earlier this week?
Money anymore.
That's why I put in the comment section, I'm at the bank, here's $100, lady. Please give me 10 tens. I don't want any more 20s.
Anymore because
if he puts his face on it, I'm going to burn money.
Yeah, I would burn that one for sure.
Now
That'd be
let's get serious now.
He
What if,
also said he didn't
let
care
me
for
let me
blacks
say
that
this before I
Lincoln.
forget. Let me say it before I forget. It's not just Uranus banging into Uranus. It's not just Eris. One of the things about Eris is it's so new. It's so new. That's one of the hard parts. But when these planets collide, I cannot tell you how many clients I have come to me today, and they got Uranus opposite Uranus. And in the old days, I would be going, oh boy, I wonder what's going on with that lady there. Now, I don't do that now. I see their powers here. They're ready. That's what these transits mean. They mean you're ready. And good old Cancer, little America, doesn't like all this disruption. But it's going to be hellacious disruption. Everybody into the rubber boat, and we're going down the rapids. That's going to be for quite a while now. And that's how Uranus is. And that's what leads to alternate types of societies where the village grows the children. Alternate types of everything. Uranus is very bright, very far ahead, because what's happening with all this PC stuff is we're finding out and we're investigating what doesn't work. And we got a big list. I got to hear from Linda. I got to hear from my professor, because I got to do it once a show, and I kind of slow myself down because I give her a little bit of a minute to get her little thoughts in order and hear from my professor of English.
I got it. This is so timely what you did today, but then that's always the case. So I don't even know why I said that. But there's so many people right now writing about the fact that, the whole idea that the past is not really the past and history is never over. And in particular, that the Civil War, the military battles and the Civil War ended, but the Cultural War didn't. And the North didn't win the Cultural War. Up to this point, the South has won the Cultural War. And what we're seeing now, you're seeing NASCAR removing Confederate flags. You're seeing Aunt Jemima, no more Aunt Jemima. They're talking about Uncle Ben. We're talking, when you start talking about symbols,
That's very big.
These symbols, the taking down statues, and not just the Confederate statues, but the statues of the conquistadors in the Southwest. That there's just, I think we're at this moment where, if what the Civil War was about equal treatment, what we're really saying is that we're looking around and we're saying, wait a minute, not only aren't real people being treated equally, but we have all these cultural markers that say that's just fine. Aunt Jemima, I read a big article today about Aunt Jemima was a slave. She was depicted as a slave, and that's, what that marketing was about, the slave who would make the pancake for you.
I think that this whole tradition in the past of junior collegiates spending junior year abroad and all that was wonderful. And I think that all freshmen in college should spend a week or a month or a couple months in the South in a cotton field. Do it for a couple months. And then we'll come back, no more questions. Get all your injuries taped up and gauze and all that, and let's just move on. But anyhow, even if
and in the fields in California, picking the fruits and vegetables too while they're at it, while they're pregnant with no water in this day and age.
Go ahead, Sandra.
So what I understand you're saying is that Uranus is also happening now.
Of course it is.
Okay, and and that means revolutionary changes. You said the power is here, that we're ready, but it'll cause chaos first.
Well, it'll cause chaos is one of its methods. It's chaos. It's chaotic to the degree that you resist. And remember that Uranus is in Taurus. So it's a weird place for it. It's not in Eris, where it's on fire. It's not in Gemini, where it can scatter. It's in Taurus, which is about the earth. and
Now.
foundations. And this is why you're seeing all these revolutions taking place with soil and with things having to do with the Earth's foundations themselves. The biggest revolution is taking place for other reasons that I could explain, is on the quantum level. We're starting to realize that I can heal you and you're in the middle of Ireland. And I could be sitting here on my laptop and heal you in Ireland because there is no space and there is no distance. There's no more time to talk about it. It's here. It's here. So what sits at the end of the rainbow is the Course in Miracles and its love lectures and how everything is love, etc. But we're not there yet. And what's got to get us there is we got a year and a half yet. We got to start wrapping up all this time of Pluto and Capricorn, and we got to get ready because the client I had today, her sun was at 0 degrees Aquarius. And I was preparing her for when Pluto crosses, the day that Pluto crosses into Aquarius. And she's sitting right by the door, boom, right in her ear. When the planets change signs, it's a big deal. So we need to, what's the answer here, Sandy? The answer is the way you deal with Uranus transits is you become tolerant of other people. You let them be who they are. You let them be themselves. Realize what I do for you, I do for me. This is where we're having our trouble because we're so Cancerian and we're so Capricornian, which is all about, I'm going to take care of myself, you go get yours. Well, we're getting a real sound here somewhere. Somebody's pulling 2x4s or something. Somebody's pulling nails out of 2x4s. Let's see, we'll do it that way. There we go. Now it's all soft. Yeah, Sandy, go ahead. You are muted again. You are muted again.
Oh, I was muted again. Okay. I also wanted to relate that to the individual. So not only is our country going through that, but we go through that every 21 years, is what you're saying.
Yes, clearly. Yeah, and you should go watch that video on YouTube, Rick DiClemente, Uranus stages, and explains to you very clearly what happens at each of those 21.
Thank you.
What happens, a Uranian time leaves you liberated because you're loose enough to go with the changes, or it leaves you cracked. Strokes, aneurysms, because the energy that's coming through, you cannot stop it. And the energy, the amount of it, you cannot control the amount. And when you have Uranus coming through you, it's literally like I'm coming out of my skin. People are telling you the truth, but they think that they can push you back down. No. And if you do push it back down, you're going to put a Mack truck in your lane. You don't push energy back down in astrology. The number one thing we need out of all this is we need good astrologers in every Capitol building. We just do. Talking sane astrology to understand how to get us all in sync with natural energies. But there's so many flipped out astrologers that are doing such crazy stuff that it's just a crazy thing to even think about. Other questions? Come on. Here comes Erica, part 4.
Well, what you said just made me think about, and what Sandy was saying. So when Uranus was in Eris, was it like making the individual think about transforming, and now
Let me tell you exactly what happened. Not only was it in Aries, but it was squaring Pluto and Capricorn. Okay, but I got to get this thing out of I can't see you because this thing's on my screen. Okay, let me tell you a story about that. Aries is the sign that knows what it wants to do. Everybody else says, should I do this? Well, I don't know. Well, maybe 3 years later. I don't know. Aries doesn't care. I know what I want to do. Let's go do it. That's just how Aries are in general. Well, I was watching, and I can't remember if it was March 27th of 2011. I can't remember the exact date. I can't remember. I used to have them memorized. I remember the day that Uranus hit Aries. And I remember broadcasting it in my articles because to astrologers it's finishing an 84-year residence in one zodiac and starting a new one. And what I saw for those next couple of weeks was amazing. Everybody I talked to knew what they wanted to do. I had such a breeze in all my readings. I knew what I wanted to do. I used to wonder about, but now I know what I want to do. So everybody turned into Aries for a couple of weeks, a couple of months. I watched it happen. It was wonderful. I felt real sure of myself. I knew what I wanted to do. But after a while, the weeds grew back, and the Aries kept on their course, and the rest of us overcomplicated our lives like we always do. So Uranus is very simple. It's revolution, and it's just trying, it's soft in terms of if we allow people to be who they are, it'll be okay. And it's tragic, and it's fire burning, and it's looting if we have all this resistance and fighting. And what do you have when you have a Fox network that just wants to keep showing the burning and the looting? It gets in the mindset of all these people. Fear, fear, fear. Resistance, resistance. Well, Uranus is going to hit those people too. And then they're going to label it as the far out, crazy left-wing Democrats because they got to label it somehow. Well, the rubber is going to hit the road soon. So I'm going to bring this to an end. While all this is going on, I thought it would help you to get reminded of what happened in the 60s, how it connected into the last 7-8 years, and how it's blending into the ever-growing Eris square to Pluto that we're going through right now. And I'm not going to BS you. I'm not watching the other planets too much right now. It's a very different kind of time because these two biggies are so powerful that that's what my eyes are on, and that's what I'm watching. I mean, I'm watching Jupiter, and I'm watching Saturn and early Aquarius, etc., etc. But what you're seeing is Eris. You're seeing the people fight at any cost for fairness and for justice. And the really significant thing that's happened in the past couple of weeks is not that we can't play music on this show anymore. No. The really significant thing that's happened is the people holding hands together in the streets and it maintaining. And the public, the police even know, we better back out. We better get out of the way. They can sense the power. And imagine if they didn't have the masks on. So that's very promising. Now, I don't know when, but in the next several weeks, when Linda and I get a little more experience with the Healy, you can look it up, Healy, Heal with a Y at the end, Healy devices, when she gets a little more educated and up to speed on it, she will come back and she will answer your questions about it, demonstrate how it's being used, and you can heal people all across the world. Doesn't matter where they are. The machine gets an image of who you are, and the machine starts talking to you, telling you what, do you need work on your sixth chakra? Do you need work on your knee? Do you need work on your diet, on your blood? It's just multifarious. It's incredible. It's very quantum, and that's what I wanted to tell you. When you get these big energies, you're going to get big scientific breakthroughs at the same time because that's one and the same. You're probably going to see a cure for cancer in the next several years, probably, because the quantum field is invading everything. Anyhow, good night, everybody. Be cool, be clean, be without droplets.
Thank you. Good night.
Namaste.
We'll see you, namaste, and all them
you.
things.
Thank you.
This will be This will be up on YouTube tomorrow, and we'll
Very
see what the
interesting.
doc has for us next week.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you,
Good night,
Rick.
everybody.
Thank you so much.
Fascinating.
It's fine.